Hey, everyone, and welcome back to the Medical Fitness Podcast. I'm Jeff Young, here with my co host, David Flinch. We're really excited about today's episode because we're joined by someone who's made a powerful impact in the medical fitness space, Raina Childers-Richmond. Raina is a registered dietitian, certified health coach, and a longtime advocate for integrating nutrition, behavior change, and fitness in ways that truly meet people where they are. She's developed and led outpatient nutrition and weight loss programs, worked with medical fitness centers for over 17 years, and has presented at several Medical Fitness Association events, including webinars, summits, and the Medical Fitness Association National Conference.
Yes, and today we're diving into some timely and important topics: anti-obesity medications, nutrition for active aging, and supporting women's health through perimenopause and menopause, all of which Raina has presented on recently for the Medical Fitness Association. And if you like what you hear today, you'll definitely want to join us in Owensboro, Kentucky, this June at the MFA Central Region Summit, where Raina will also be presenting there live. It's a great opportunity to go deeper into these topics, ask questions, and connect with her, as well as other amazing presenters in person. Raina, welcome to the podcast. We're so glad you're here.
Great. Thank you, guys. I'm honored to be here today.
And for our listeners, can you give just a little more background of what your role is now and some of the things that you're doing?
Sure. Well, most of my career I spent in the medical fitness space. Actually, live sort of central United States, south of St. Louis, Missouri, and I was the nutrition services director for two medically integrated fitness centers for 18 plus years. And then in 2021, I moved into a different role. Actually went to a digital health startup, which was really exciting, and did that for about a year. And then currently I'm working for a company called CalNutri Health One, which provides, I'm the director of partner success, which provides turnkey lifestyle programming, high quality nutritional products for fitness centers, medical practices, just a variety of health-based communities. And so I'm enjoying that sort of new space.
Do you mind if I ask real quick, how long have you been practicing as a professional?
Now, Jeff, that is not polite to ask a woman.
You know what? And I have four sisters too, so I should know better.
You should know better. No, I'm actually close to 28 years
Oh, okay.
as a professional. Yeah. So I've
Yeah.
gotten to do a variety of things. Yeah. And funny, like my story, I'm originally from the Southwest, Phoenix, Arizona, born and raised, and ended up in the Midwest as a collegiate gymnast. And last semester of college went on a blind date with a Missouri boy and never went back to Arizona, much to my parents' dismay, but always been interested in nutrition and performance. So it really felt like a great space for me. And I've had a wonderful opportunity and different things that have really been amazing as far as my career so far.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, let's start with the big picture. From your perspective, what would you say is the role of medical fitness professionals in today's evolving healthcare landscape, especially as it relates to long-term nutrition and lifestyle support?
It's a great question. One of the unique things I've always felt privileged being in the medical fitness space is I feel like we have a unique proposition and just a unique position where we can be a bit of a health home for our communities. And so I love that we can provide so much in a variety of ways. And now when I was new to to medical fitness, I was one of the first RDs in a medical fitness center. There weren't always dietitians there. And so I felt like that was a really organic, symbiotic place for all this to happen. And now I'm seeing medical fitness centers bring in mental health, practitioners. So they've got the nutrition, they've got mental health, they have the exercise science, and so I feel that's really where it all can kind of happen. And again, medical fitness, we have knowledgeable, credentialed team members. We are able to be, even if we're owned by a healthcare system, and I know we've got medical fitness centers now in the commercial realm and in the healthcare realm both. I feel like we have access to healthcare at large, like so we can support our members in that way too by providing that being almost like a liaison or an ambassador for them into the healthcare space. So I just feel like it's a really, really exciting time to be in the medical fitness area and sector with all that's going on because things are evolving. The science is evolving. We're seeing a lot of interesting things going on in the credentialing spaces for both nutrition and fitness professionals. So yeah, I think it's a great time to be here.
I'll chime in real quick and say that I'm in my 30th year. My first job out of college was at Duke University Medical Center's Diet and Fitness Center. So this was back in the mid 90s. At the time, it was arguably one of the leading medical weight loss
Yeah,
facilities, in existence.
yeah,
And so as a first job out of college, it was an amazing experience. And we had medicine, fitness, nutrition, and behavior components. And we collaborated, very closely with the registered dietitian. So, I thought that this was the norm. And
right.
then I moved to New York City where I'm at and realized that no, this is not the norm. But now that I've worked in medical fitness facilities, it's kind of like the way I look at it is when you're in that ecosystem and you have the opportunity to collaborate with people that really everyone should be collaborating with and learning from and
Yeah,
and all that stuff. And so it's a little bit frustrating. It leads to a little frustration because you realize how things should look and that we fitness professionals and registered dietitians should just flat out be collaborating with each
right,
other as the norm, and it's not the norm.
right.
And so,
Yeah.
anyways, I
It's
want to,
come it's come a long way. I tell you, it's come a long way in my years for sure. Because I had colleagues in other centers and they were trying to find dietitians in their healthcare system at large, which turned out to be a huge challenge. And they were trying to send their members, well, if you're going to go to this other building and then you're going to go find and register here and then you'll go with that, meet that dietitian. And there wasn't just this ability to like from I can walk out on the floor and I can say, okay, Jeff, I've got this member of yours I'm working with. Let's set up a
yes,
time and talk through stuff. That that's a game changer. That's a game changer.
absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm gonna switch gears just a little bit and talk about or ask you a question so that we can talk about something that I'm very passionate about. A couple years ago, I started getting involved with the Obesity Medicine Association. I presented at their annual conference in Denver 2 years ago, or is it 2 years? No, it's a little over a year ago. And I'm also involved with some of their state level societies, Minnesota and North Carolina. And so the anti-obesity medications is something that's near and dear to my heart, was going to be my next question for you because you've been speaking a lot about these AOMs lately. And so in your perspective and opinion, what should fitness and wellness professionals understand about clients using AOMs like these GLP-1s, and how can they best support those clients while staying within their scope?
Great question. Well, first of all, we've never had a tool like this before.
Right.
Never when and we're it's not going away, right? So I've run into a variety of professionals within this in our medical fitness space. Had some interesting colleagues talk about how they feel about these drugs. Some are positive, quite honestly, some are negative. And I think no matter what our own personal opinions are about the tool, we have to acknowledge the tool for what it is, and it's amazing. So whether you love them or hate them, when your clients decide, and it's a huge decision to take on the tool of one of these medications, we first need to respect it. And then trying to figure out like how can I best support them. And because there are so many things around nutrition related to these medications, that whole scope creep is real. I mean, it's I don't feel like it's always an intentional thing. I think it can happen organically and just, the conversations with the client or something just happens. So it's not like most RDs are not like turfy, like, oh, why'd you talk about vegetables? I mean, it's not going to be, we're not upset about that kind of thing. I think where the scope creep can happen or where we need to respect scope is this is the personalization aspect of it. In general, if Jeff, if you're out there saying, hey, protein's going to be important for you, you need to really focus on protein. Thank you for that consistent message because I'm going to be sending that too. And the reality is, a lot of our fit pros are seeing our clients more frequently than we are. whether it's in training or they're showing up in the group exercise classes or whatever. And so have, again, like we just alluded to, that communication, so what we're working on, and you can be checking in and kind of, how is it going? Raina's been encouraging you to get that, protein first when you're starting your meals, any issues. I think that's really where it all comes down to. But really, it's our job as the nutrition expert to kind of decide the how much and help that translate into the food. Like, what does that look like when it translates into food? Because when you look at a lot of the people using these drugs and who they were primarily designed for are people who are managing cardiometabolic disease. And so a flat, if somebody unknowingly or without the expertise recommends a certain amount or a specific amount of a nutrient, and we know that the client has maybe some compromised kidney function or something like that because they've been managing type 2 diabetes. We don't want to have conflicting information going on, because that just confuses the member even more. So I think the big thing is collaborating. If they aren't currently working with a dietitian and that they're on this medicine as they come into your center and they haven't, I really feel like it's a great idea to make the connection happen for them, encourage the connection, get them to an RD, so that they can get as much support as possible and the most holistic support for sure. But I think the number one thing is this is their decision. A lot of people using these drugs aren't even telling their loved ones they're on them still. Some of them, because of cost reasons, are finding these medications in places like an aesthetic spa or an online platform. And although we know that, that's not FDA approved and that's not ideally where we would say we would love them to get those medications, it's still happening, and we don't want to be hand slapping or judging. We need to be supporting. So I think that's the bigger picture. It's a huge decision. It's something that people struggle with and they still feel there's stigma attached to, and they need to be able to feel in their fitness center with their healthcare team, because that's who we are. We're part of their healthcare team there in the medical fitness center, that they can come and they can trust us. They can feel safe there. They can tell us what's going on, because that's when people get into trouble, I feel like, with these medications, when they can't share what's happening and they maybe are struggling. And so we need to continue to create that environment that says, nope, here you're good. We're going to get you all the resources we can. We're going to help you be as successful as we can with this tool.
Love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love how you said, support these people and then individualize it, because I mean, that's the key in so much of what we do, and taking a personalized approach and not just a one size fits all.
Right.
I just think that's great. AOM, anti-obesity medications. You introduced at our annual conference last year, actually, the acronym AOMS, standing for Activity, Optimized Nutrition, Management of Symptoms, and Support, which I love. It just kind of, now we're combining acronyms. And can you maybe just unpack what that looks like in practice, and what a well-rounded approach to supporting somebody on AOMs entails?
Sure. Well, I certainly, with my fitness colleagues, I don't go into too much about activity because you guys are the experts, and I defer to that expertise completely. But I think for a lot of the people who are choosing to use this tool, they aren't really gym people. And so the barrier around finding the perfect exercise for them or I tell you what, the barrier to get to do any kind of exercise is really the bigger issue. So only thing I always encourage, because I've been working with these medications since the mid 2000s. So I feel like the biggest thing is not overwhelming them with, hey, you're going to lose all this muscle because you're on this medicine, so we got to really do some serious weight training. And they're looking at the machines and the power alleys of our fitness centers. Free weight area was called Power Alley. So it's like, they're looking at this going, I that just freaks me out. I think the only thing I always tell my just based on the feedback I got from those clients directly was like, that place is intimidating. That place, that scares me. I'm not going to work out over there. I can't even fit in those machines. I don't know how to work them. It's just maybe don't get too worried initially about saving their muscle. Let's just get them comfortable in the space. Let's just get them doing something, finding something. I always use the something is better than nothing. And you're building bridges with them, right? You're building them into the next level, and that's got to start from someplace. So that's the activity part. The optimizing nutrition, we know that these medications contribute to some lean muscle loss. Well, we're trying to figure it out. We know where's the change? It's the lean body mass? Is it muscle? Is it the other part? I mean, so there's still a lot of unknowns. There's no real definites, but we know there's body composition changes. And we know that protein is particularly important. So we talk about, how do we maximize that protein intake? How do we translate that into, ways to get food in through meals and snacks? We know that some of those who do have side effects could potentially have, constipation or diarrhea. And then there are nutritional strategies for supporting those as well. And then the whole managing the side effect thing, because they're there with you perhaps more frequently, you're able to check in with them on those side effects. And it's not like, hey, are you puking right now? Like, what's going, it's not that whole, like, let me scare you about this. But it's just checking in. It's like, hey, how are things going? How have you been feeling? And just knowing that they can talk to you about it. And then, your job, I think, is, and I'm talking as a fit pro, is to, like, if you see that they're having issues, encouraging them to check in with their healthcare team. It's super important. I feel like I can tell you, in all the years of working with this medication, I've never had a client personally have pancreatitis or thyroid cancer or the big scary things that, we all hear at the end of terrible drug ads that just makes you want to not take anything.
Yeah.
But there are, I've had a few people end up in the hospital in the ER with the dehydration. We've had a couple bonks on the fitness floor because people haven't eaten in 6 hours. So addressing those things and making sure that, we're getting them to their healthcare provider and encouraging them and getting them to the dietitian, back, hey, maybe you need to check back in with Raina. It sounds like you haven't been able to eat much lately. Those kind of conversations are about the managing symptoms kind of thing. And then the support. For most of these people, the medication is designed to be a long-term tool, right? It may not be at the maximum dose. My belief is that they will land somewhere on a maintenance dose, but it's a medication designed for chronic disease management. So how do we continue to support them beyond that initial, maybe exciting first weight loss phase? These drugs do not replace lifestyle interventions or improved lifestyle strategies. They don't, we need exercise, we need good nutrition, whether or not they're, losing massive amounts of weight or not. So that engagement, I think, which is for all of us, retention engagement with all of our members is the $1 million question, but particularly, like, helping sort of cement these new lifestyle strategies for their life now and for what it's going to look like in the future is really that key for ongoing support.
I'm curious about something. So you developed this acronym and this concept that you just described. So is this also something that you have like educational material around, or you
Yeah.
brand and you get out there that other people can
Well,
dive deeper into this?
I have created a 12-week initial program called Catalyst for those using anti-obesity medications, particularly GLP-1s, even though that category is broader beyond GLP-1s. So the curriculum is there to support program managers or professionals who are delivering these kind of I say programming, so it may be initial foundational programming, but they may be delivering it in group formats. They may be delivering it virtually. They may be delivering it one-on-one. It may be just resources that Fit Pros are using in their sessions. It may be something dietitians can refer to. So yeah, we do have some of those resources for sure, but most of that is just me getting out and talking about it with other colleagues and people around the medical fitness space. And even I've been fortunate to work with some commercial facilities as well, who are not quite at medical fitness levels, but they're pulling into this clinical space, and they're seeing clients in their gyms who are using these medications, and they're feeling a little overwhelmed by how to help manage that. So I've been fortunate to be a resource for those spaces as well.
Yeah, this is great. I'm wrapping up a doctoral program in kinesiology. I'm going the EDD route, not PhD. Early on in the program sequence, I wrongly assumed that I needed to do traditional research, and it was actually going to be related to a lot of things that you just said. And then I learned that about 4 courses into the program that the institution I'm taking this doctoral program at is pioneering something called action research, which I won't get into in this podcast. But the point is that it caused me to like switch directions, and now I'm doing something a little bit. Actually, I'm doing something that relates to something else you just said, which is basically from a clinician standpoint, understanding how to meet the patient where they're at behaviorally, and like for example, the whole you're losing lean muscle tissue and you need to go weight train. Like, when you said that, that was one of the things that popped in my head. Exactly. So, we got to first find out where are they at, and
Yeah.
make that determination, and then direct the conversation based
Right.
on where they're at. And so that's what I'm going to be doing my dissertation on now. And then another thing related to something you said is like, I don't know if you might be familiar with this, but I'm a huge believer, like in the fitness world, all fitness trainers prior to training somebody, there's a concept called readiness to train, where you just talk to them about like
Yeah.
how do you feel, how did your body respond to the last session, what did you eat, when did you eat, and also just kind of use, especially those first, it's an ongoing thing, but especially the first X amount of weeks, really,
Sure.
for education and get to know
Mhm.
them, familiarizing yourself with them, their situation, learning from them because they're the ones living with their
Yeah.
situation, and not thinking that you're the know-it-all, and all that stuff. So all these thoughts were kind of clicking in my head as you were
Yeah.
um, going through this. It's great stuff.
Thanks. Yeah. Totally agree.
So I'm going to jump to another question, because you talked about protein. I want to dive a little deeper into that because that's something that I am passionate about as well. Um, I actually I teach at a in an exercise science program here in New York City, and one of the courses I teach, don't smack me through the camera, is nutrition and health. I teach an intro to nutrition and health course for the exercise science students, and it's the only asynchronous course that I teach. And I recently was on Dr. Jose Antonio.
Okay.
He's the CEO and co-founder of the International Society of Sports Nutrition. So I was
Mm.
actually on his podcast twice, and one of them, it just completely revolved around protein, because then I wanted to use that podcast, or I am using that podcast, the recording of it, to put into the course to make it more robust, and
Sure.
so the students aren't just bored, just talking to each other on discussion boards and stuff like that, and they can actually see me and him talk about it. So in any case, this is a topic I'm passionate about, and I'm curious, because you emphasize eating your protein first. And
Yeah.
so, from your perspective, why is this such a key takeaway? And how does that strategy help across different populations, from menopausal women to older adults to those on anti-obesity medications?
Yeah. I would say in the last decade, what we understand about protein has been incredible. Um, but as we age, you know, we now kind of sort of this perimenopausal. So just kind of to be clear, so women enter a rapid aging state when they're in perimenopause. So when I say aging, that's happening. Like, hey, hello, I'm one perimenopausal woman right now. So but then as we get older, that ability, and primarily because of hormonal changes, but that muscle building effect of protein and exercise decreases. And so we actually need additional protein and additional exercise to then try to supplement that, for lack of a better description. And that's a very simple explanation of a much more complicated physiological process. But so yeah, I feel like they're particularly, and then if we flop back to the people who are on an appetite suppressing medication, a GLP-1, they have this much appetite. And if we're going to make every bite count, get the most bang for each bite, we want to lead with protein first. If you're going to get full, let's eat the protein first. And I tell you, it's challenging to do. And then when we talk about just aging and perimenopause and menopausal women, particularly, the amount of protein that you have to take in takes a lot of strategy. A lot of strategy. I think clients will get overwhelmed by it because it's higher quantities than they've even really thought about in some cases. And then again, that's where that RD can come into, to say, okay, this particular person needs so much protein based on health history, current weight status, medications, all these kind of things, and then tries to translate that into food for them. But usually we're talking about 30 to 40 grams of protein at a time, multiple times through the day, and then maybe smaller snacks that are protein rich as well. I have found personally, as I try to balance this myself, it's hard to do in just food. So, I mean, I'm using protein powders. I'm using, a high quality protein bar when I can grab it. Those are so again, being able to put people in line or in a place where they can evaluate products is, I think, another important part of the education standpoint too. Supplements aren't quite the wild west that they once were, but they still there's so many, it's overwhelming. So giving people strategies on how to find the right ones for them and decipher all the information and cut through the influencer space and all of that. But yeah, protein's key. Protein's key. And it's not just for muscle building. It's for cognitive health. It's for bone strength. I mean, I don't think people truly understand that the average person probably doesn't truly understand all the roles, immune function, that we now understand about protein.
If, for lack of a better way to phrase this question, is there a conflict between a digestive system conflict between higher protein and anti-obesity medications? Is this something that you need to be either concerned about or aware of?
I
Um,
I don't know that it's a digestive conflict, but I feel like
from a symptom standpoint.
yes, yes. Okay, so I have people exactly. Thank you for clarifying. So I have people on GLP-1s who can't cook chicken right now because it nauseates them,
Gotcha.
or they can't smell eggs. It's almost like you guys probably don't. Maybe you have spouses who were pregnant or morning sickness kind of symptoms. I have a lot of women, particularly saying this is like I have morning sickness again. So here I'm trying to eat protein. I'm working on protein, but I'm having issues with some of the symptoms that include nausea, or they feel like when they up their protein and lead with protein, they're more constipated. So again, yes, there's definitely when we try to reach these higher goals, it does take some additional support and education. And
Yeah.
again, I think the big piece here is the practical application of the science. If I can tell you, you need, 1.6 grams of protein per kilogram or whatever, we can go through all this kind of stuff and give them magic number ranges. But what does that mean I eat tomorrow? Like
Exactly.
that practical application, I think, is often the gap between science and daily living for the average human working through these challenges. And that's where that collaboration that we talked about at the very beginning is key. So,
Yeah,
Yep.
the collaboration and the individualization. I mean,
mhm.
that's speaks directly to the fact that you can tell people a range and all of these things to do, but then you got to factor in it's not just one thing usually that a person
No,
has going on with them,
no,
right? So, yeah,
right.
and that's why it's so important. I mean, and so thanks for going into that. Perimenopause, menopause, I think those are misunderstood in a lot of fitness centers, even medical fitness centers, and so can you go just a little bit more into that, in terms of what uh, fitness professionals and others in medical fitness centers can do to support women during that time in their life?
I'll tell you what, this is the hour of perimenopause. If you guys haven't been living under a rock, I mean, it is
It
everywhere.
is. Yeah.
Last 2 years, I mean, it's way overdue. We know it's way overdue, but it's an exciting time for midlife health for women for sure. Um, Interesting thing with medical fitness, I've challenged a few of my fitness center director friends, even where I used to work, my old boss. I'm like, have you looked at the percentage of your membership base that are in the 40 plus with female demographic? Have you even like took a picture of that? And it's huge. It's actually for most centers, it's pretty huge. And this is if you think back in your medical marketing days, this is also the demographic that makes most of the healthcare decisions for the family. So there's incredible opportunity here to support this demographic in a variety of ways. And I know, and I've gotten into some really good discussions with some colleagues who say, but what we do in medical fitness is good for everybody. Why do we have to make a big deal about it being done for perimenopausal, menopausal women? I mean, come and work out. You're going to stay strong. Your bones will stay strong. You're going to do these things. I agree. Totally agree. But there's something about a call out to this demographic, particularly, that says, I hear you. We're here. We know this. We haven't understood this very well in the generations before you. And we're going to do better. We're going to do better, and we're going to make sure that we're providing the services that would support you. And the medical fitness is another place of community. If you've ever been in a group X class with women, and you guys don't get to talk about women, but I get to. I mean, we love to talk about this stupid feeling things that have happened to us because we're in perimenopause. I mean, there's nothing more fun to affirm my sanity than to get with another group of women who says, I put laundry pods in the dishwasher for a week till my coffee cups were smelling like Tide. Did I realize what I had done? Or I had a friend who was in Walmart having an incredible hot flash, took off her shoes and socks just to put her feet cold on the tile, started, blotting herself with paper towels she hadn't paid for yet, just ripping them open out of her Walmart cart. Her 17-year-old daughter ditched her, said, I'm not with you anymore, just like took off to some other aisle. She doesn't know. I mean, in the moment, it's horrible. But man, when we're together, it's just like, so, and if you have a cafe, we had a cafe and there was always the coffee group of women who do a little exercise. They go have coffee together. They sit around. I'm trying to convince my boss to do Friday evening book club for women because it's a space. The gym is basically empty. We got community rooms that we're paying to have the lights on anyway. Bring in people, just open it up to the community, and they don't have to be a member, but it brings people into your facility. It shows that you're supporting this demographic. I mean, I think there's so many fun ways that medical fitness, again, could do. I think it would be awesome to have a guys only community event at your medical fitness center for guys only, and then bring in all the experts, bring in the medical community, bring in your fitness teams, talk about what's happening for the women in their lives, their spouses, their sisters, their mom, whoever, because I think that would be incredible. I think most guys, and I don't want to speak for you guys, but we don't understand exactly, and you're trying to be empathetic, you're trying to understand what's happening. But until you've had a crazy woman, and I say that tongue in cheek, but that's how, we can feel at times, or this, I don't know who I am right now either. I'm sorry to you, honey, for whatever's happening. But I think there's just a lot of great ways, because we have that connection to good science and good healthcare and those resources, that we could facilitate a lot of great services for this demographic particularly. And then, but make it known that this is what we're doing on purpose. This is intentional, because we know this is a need. Yeah. So sorry, soapbox, got on my soapbox. That's
Oh,
okay.
that's all right. And you're a creative thinker, and I love that. I'm not a creative thinker, so when I listen to you saying things like that, I'm like, I would have never thought of that. So no, that's good stuff. And you know what? It leads well into my next question, which is a little bit more. It's kind of on the same topic, but a little bit more focused. You've been touching, since we started this show, on the emotional and psychological aspects of care. So a little bit more focused. How can fitness professionals be more empathetic? I mean, you've already touched on this, but maybe you can dive a little deeper. How
Sure.
can fitness professionals be more empathetic and informed in their conversations with clients facing body changes due to medication or hormones, like we've been talking about, or aging?
The Medical Fitness Podcast is brought to you in part by the Medical Fitness Association, helping fitness professionals and medically integrated fitness centers achieve their full potential through education, certification, and networking opportunities. Join today and elevate your career with the Medical Fitness Association. Visit medicalfitness.org to learn about the many benefits of membership offered by the Medical Fitness Association. That's medicalfitness.org.
Yeah, no, that's great. We live in a very numerically driven society. And I mean, I've been to a couple of David's presentations around outcome data and the importance of tracking, and what doesn't get tracked doesn't get, I love all that. And I'm a big believer in outcome data. Always had lots of program outcome data that we were tracking. But I feel like sometimes we get, again, we're clinically trained. We want to move the needle on all kinds of markers, but we can get lost in some of that and forget about sort of the non-numerical victories that people experience. And so if somebody has a bad week, which is going to happen, they might have bad months, life happens all the time. So how are we supporting things in a way that aren't just about, body composition change or weight change or things like that in our spaces? I like to talk about non-numerical victories that are about quality of life, or, and there's a great assessment tools out there, like quality of life assessment tools that could be incorporated into programming into your client communication. We would do a lifestyle strategy update. So like when they would first start working with us, we'd have a couple of lifestyle strategies where they would rate how their confidence was regarding that particular thing. And then we do those kind of evaluations throughout our programming, outside of whether they lost a pound. And so were they now eating more fruits and vegetables? When, were they now more whatever, and so every session that we would have, I always start with, tell me what went well this week, or how'd what was the good news this week? And sometimes they couldn't find it. They were like, oh, I don't know, everything wrong. I ate bad. I was so bad. I ate a brownie. I was so bad. I didn't get to the gym. I was so bad. And I said, you know what? Bad is the guys in movies who rob banks and shoot people. They never spend time in a movie talking about if that guy ate a brownie or didn't go to the gym.
And
He's just,
the David Flenches of this world. You gotta include that. I'm sorry to cut you off.
but I'm just saying, I feel like sometimes we get lost in that. So, there's progress is multifaceted. And I think when we highlight and encourage them to see those things that sometimes they have a hard time seeing because they feel, we're all capable of being fairly, hard on ourselves. It just brings joy back to the health pursuit. It brings increased commitment. It helps them see things that maybe they don't see. And so that, I think, is a great role for us in the fitness center. We even did, I did scripting and training with all my front desk staff about how they communicate with all my weight management clients when they're coming in. Because they would want to say that, they'd be wrapping up a session with me and they'd be like, oh, how much weight did you lose? I'm like, time out. We're going to be doing a lot of training here with you guys. So yeah, just the whole communication around what they're working on is really important. So I think as Fit Pros, as front desk staff, as just the center wide, how we are communicating with folks that we know are invested in a significant health journey right now is really important to support that emotional side of it.
I have a quick question for both you and David, because that's interesting to me. I worked for 10 years, I worked in a big Mount Sinai Beth Israel system here in New York City. And we about halfway into, or a little 2/3 of the way into my time there, we expanded, took over another floor, and then we had a really big front desk. It was like a big arc and a whole bunch of front desk staff. And that was something that, you didn't really even think, or at least I didn't think. I was like, oh, they're the face, they're the face of the company, right? Or of our facility. The first people that the patients are seeing, and the conversations need to be appropriate. And therefore there does need to be some training and stuff like that. So I'm just curious, maybe Raina, from your standpoint, how do you like start something like that, address it? Are you addressing it with management first and then figuring out a game plan? And David, are you familiar? Is this stuff going on across facilities where the front desk staff is also being trained and brought up to speed?
Well, we were very intentional. Again, a great director. When I first caught a conversation, it was immediately a red flag and a concern for me. And so when I put it to him, and we're always looking for we used to have in services. We had to have
Yeah,
so many
absolutely.
educational things that we had to do. So it turned into just that kind of training, front desk training. Also, we had some really young new fitness professionals who were incredibly great shape, hadn't had a lot of life experience. They're working with a different demographic than themselves.
Yeah,
And some of the ways that I was hearing they're being communicated with my clients were red flags for me.
yeah,
And so he was all about it. So we brought him in and we started working on training with them around it. And we actually put together scripts because even when people just initially, like, especially as at front desk, and David, I don't know what your experience is, but you get turnover. You got the college kids coming in, and you're rotating through sometimes a younger group. But we would script it because from the time they answered the phone from the center and somebody said, I was wondering if you have weight management services, it started there. We also had a cafe. We sold meal replacement products as part of one of our more structured meal program, our weight management programs. So they were engaging in transactions with clients, knowing that they were participating in weight loss services or trying to lose weight. And so there was just some gentle teachings about that, and just trying to create some more empathy in the conversations and things. The Obesity Action Coalition, if you're familiar with them, have some great tools around talking and just like around weight bias. And so we took some of that approach too, because that I think that there's some underlying, whether again, not necessarily intentional, but there is weight bias in our spaces, even though we like to say we're inclusive for all. It's still part of what we're working to be better at. So yeah, that's where that mine came from. And David, I don't know, you may be more aware of what others are doing.
Yeah, no, those are great points. You hit on a lot of good things. It's funny because Jeff, you're asking that, and I've now been out of the day-to-day operations for almost 5 years. So I can tell you what some of the things that we did, but I can also tell you some of the things that I hear from managers and directors of facilities now, and the staffing challenges are that's a real big thing lately. And so it makes it even tougher because you try to include your front desk staff as much as possible so that they have the knowledge. First of all, they need to know what programs you offer, what classes you offer, what services are going on, and that's a lot sometimes for especially for any of your part-time staff who are only there a couple times a week. It's a little bit easier when you have your daily staff who work there all the time. So yeah, I mean, there's then the longer they're there, the more that they can interact with your fitness staff, and a lot of times that's where some of the magic happens when an exercise specialist gets to spend 5 or 10 minutes waiting for a client maybe up at the front, or something like that, where then they can maybe ask some questions, and so you try to facilitate that, and then some of your group meetings and functions like that where you're really trying to educate. But it is a challenge. Some of this reminds me of one of the things I always believed was the personal training. Yes, there's a lot of training going on, but it's a lot of personal going on, right?
Yeah,
Personal training is
well
at least
said.
personal. Sometimes it's even more, and you're the psychologist and you're the everything.
Like the hairdresser.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So, I mean, some of these skills of empathy and being able to find out what else is going on in their life and try to, meet them where they're at and adjust just based on that day's feeling of how they physically feel or emotionally feel, or that's just as important as knowing the normally prescribed number of reps, sets, intensity, frequent. Yeah, all of that is important, but then you've got the other side is more of an art, I would say. So
Yeah.
yeah, a lot of good stuff there. And man, we could spend so much time on this. I'm gonna skip down to a question I wanted to make sure I got to that has some practical piece to it. And so I know your presentations that I've seen are really, you really focus on practical tools, community building ideas. So what are some of your favorite strategies that people listening and the facilities that are part of our membership can use to foster long-term engagement, especially with some of these populations that we've been talking, the middle age females, and those using the GLP-1s and anti-obesity medications?
Well, that's a great question. And again, engagement's I think it's always a struggle for us because there's not a one size fits all. But I don't know if you guys remember this. And again, I'm probably aging myself, but when I was in 6th or 7th grade, my favorite books at the library were something called a Pick Your Own Adventure book.
Mm.
So you would start the book, but you could end it like 3 or 4 different ways. But as the reader, I got to pick, like, which do I want Judy to go down the dark hall, or do I, that kind of thing. I have found that with programming, and it's going back to what you said, David, about personalization, is my favorite psychological theory is self-determination theory. And I feel like all things engagement need to go back to support self-determination theory, which are the 3 big: autonomy. Are we allowing people to choose? Where do they want to focus? What do they want to work on? Are we guiding them in strategies and encouraging them and supporting them so that they can get to mastery levels with those skills? And are we providing connection? Those are the 3 foundational principles of self-determination theory. So that is always the base of everything I do in programming. And how am I doing that engagement? But then it's got to be fun. It's got to create that community. It has to do all those things. So I use a bit of a thawing carrot approach. So the thawing carrot isn't, they're in our services, they're in our programming, and then they get to pick. So let's say they're in, and I'll just give you an example of one of our programs that I used to manage. They could then choose, did they, within the program fee, they had a couple of options. Did they want extra personal training time because maybe they were less confident in that area? Would they love a massage once a week as part of the program fee because they were dealing with chronic back pain? Did they want more time with the dietitian? Did they, so again, they kind of had that personalization thing. And then as they engaged with us, they unlocked new things. So as they engaged, and they knew that they could do this. So this is early on, like, yeah. And then at this week, you have the opportunity to choose this. So then we offered community cooking classes. So then once they got to a certain point in the program, they had free access to community cooking classes, and that just kind of continued to sort of encourage them to explore all the services that were going on in medical fitness. And I think that's the tricky part, because first of all, we're trying to get a population that doesn't want to come in our door, but maybe a weight management program was the catalyst, right? They came in because they were referred by a physician, or they, came in on their own. But then how do we sort of unlayer the onion for them and just present this beautiful center that is going to be their health home? It's going to provide, be all these wonderful things for them. It's overwhelming to deliver it all to them in one sitting. It's like, whoa, I'm just barely. So I called it my thawing carrot. So, as they engage, the carrot would thaw a little bit more. They'd get more access and got exposed to more things. We had the massage therapist bring in her massage chair one day. And one of the sessions, we just, in sort of towards the late end of one of the programs, we introduced massage because a lot of people were self-conscious, didn't want to get massages or be touched. And she did chair massages, talked about the benefits of massage. And so we unlayered a little bit more, and then they got it now because they were in the program. After that session, they got discounts on massage. And I've talked to other people in medical fitness, and they said, well, our POS system won't do that. Like, how would I structure my programming fees around that with my POS system? Like, your POS system can do a bunch of things you don't even know your POS system can do. So yes, you can create it, be creative. And I think outside of the box is really, really important. But that engagement, we know they need more time than they think they need. And especially, like we've talked about the medications as a tool, they need the lifestyle in parallel with the tool of the medication, and how they're going to continue to, again, I use the word cement this new lifestyle. It takes time. Our goal was a year of participation as a minimum. And to be creative, to get people in to see you weekly, bi-weekly for a year, you had to get creative. You had to get creative. And because they would hide from you when they were struggling and wanted to keep engaging them. But once you had built that relationship and they could trust you to come even on bad days or weight gain weeks or, whatever, a loss of a parent or going through a divorce, they could still use that, they could still feel good there. So that's kind of my practical approach. I try to share that as much as I can for people to get creative. And I realize there's budgetary constraints and there's organizational constraints depending on where you're sitting. But I have a good friend who's running programs, and she's doing hybrid experiences where some of the program, they're together as a group and they're doing all kinds of engaging things. And then she takes it out to a virtual space and asks for short, flexible things. I just feel like getting creative is really important within what you can. And I know people can listen and go, oh, that's nice. Easy for her to say. She's never talked to my VP, about what I can do and what I can't do. But I think sometimes it's just being committed to that long-term engagement and coming as soon as they walk in your door for the first time, you're looking at this person going, me and you, a year, me and you, a year. I mean, in your head, you're thinking, okay, because I think as I call myself a seasoned professional, I like to think I've heard and seen everything, but I haven't. I've seen a lot and I've heard a lot, but I haven't seen everything and I haven't tried everything. And I love it when people get creative. And I think there's just so much more that we can do.
Raina, you sound a little bit more like a ask for forgiveness rather than permission person.
From administration, yeah, a little bit.
That's sometimes great.
Yeah, and usually it's worked out well. Usually it's worked out well. And thankfully for most of us, we can be agile in medical fitness compared to the larger organization, more retail minded, do some cool, fun things. So yeah.
Yeah.
This
Well,
this
great.
is interesting for me.
Yeah. Go ahead, Jeff.
I was just gonna say this is interesting for me to listen to because again, this is not my area of expertise or the way my mind thinks. And I know I can tell, Raina, listening to you, it is, and I know with David, that it's yours as well. And so what I'm talking about is that the fact that you had to, from like a facility standpoint and the services you offer your patients, you have to be thinking about. So what are the right services and how many services? And I don't want to overwhelm them with too many services. And then how much do we charge for these services? And how do we, there's just so much. And then also, you touched on the bureaucracy and all that stuff. And now you got to navigate that as well. So yeah, it's a lot of stuff to think about. And I wish I did have that talent going on in my head, but I just don't.
And one of the best things to do is just to keep the participant, the user, whatever you want to call them, in the center, and remember that you're there for them, and you're trying to do that. And yes, there are going to be some of these organizational structures that you want to stay within for the most part. But if you're keeping that person, like Raina said, if your point system just can't do it, but you want to figure something out where you can benefit this person by getting them a massage or getting them a session with the dietitian, and that's part of your package. And in the end, the person's going to be happy, and they're going to see better results, and they're going to stick with it, and they're going to all of these great things. Then and then you maybe figure it out afterwards, and some of those things happen. So
Yeah.
I'm not trying to get anyone in trouble right now, but there are some ways to do these things.
Yeah. Great.
Right.
Hey, we unfortunately need to get close to wrapping up, but I do have one more question for you before we do wrap it up, and that is, what's next on your radar? Are there any emerging or lifestyle trends that you think fitness and health leaders should be paying more attention to in, say, the next 1 to 3 years?
I think the longevity space is huge. And medical fitness is particularly positioned to do really well for longevity. And I think there's an interesting line because we have so many people that need just to get adequate nutrition, adequate movement, like just get that baseline improved.
Right.
And then when we're talking about longevity, we're talking about like optimizing those things. So I can see where, there's a balance, but and I'll just give an example of like I could see a medical fitness center offering like elevated functional lab testing and interpretation of that, maybe some additional body composition measurements, or depending on what their resources are and where they're situated within their healthcare system. I mean, because there's more and more of these standalones that are popping up, like Fountain Life's got a great one. We got Pronova's in Chicago, and that are doing some advanced testing and things like that. And so these are great and emerging areas. But I think we've always done health span as our goal in medical fitness. And that's where longevity is kind of like they're trying to grow and explode. Like we're talking about expanding health span. Well, we've always been about quality of day, kind of thing. And so I feel like it's a very natural place for us to explore into that longevity space. And I think that's continuing to explode. It's becoming very robust. And I think we have to be cautious because clinically minded people, we can be a little bit ivory tower with but it needs to be evidence-based, we've got to see the data kind of thing. But there's a lot of great science around longevity right now. It may not be, we're not extrapolating it out to the general population at this level, but there is a lot of good science. And I think we need to be responsible in talking about it. So people have that opportunity to make informed decisions about what they want to do with their health and health span. So I feel like that's, for me, probably what's top of mind on my personal radar and professional radar. For
Yeah,
sure.
good stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'll just add that I had this stat in one of my recent presentations. By 2040, which is now only 15 years from now, about a third of the total population will be over age 65.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's huge. But
And we don't want to go out like our frail grandparents did.
no,
No
No,
way.
no way. We know too much, and more people know that we know what we know, and we need to get the word out.
well,
Without a
thanks so
doubt.
much, Raina. This has been a great hour, maybe hour plus now of just really interesting things. I can't wait to hear you at the next summit that we have coming up.
Thank you.
I always enjoy seeing your presentation proposals come over. So I think anyone that's listening that wants to, hear more about some of these topics and connect, that'll be one good place to go. Speaking of connecting, is there a way that you prefer anyone who wants to reach out? Is there a social media or email, or how do you like that?
No, I think LinkedIn's great. If people are on LinkedIn, if they're not on LinkedIn, email's easy. It's just Raina@hnthealth.com, and I'll be happy to respond to anybody. Yeah, connect with people. I love connecting and growing my network in medical fitness and beyond. So would love it.
All right. Thanks so much for being on the show and for a great discussion. And my first time getting to meet you, and hopefully it won't be the last. Well, we'll definitely be crossing paths at MFA the events. So
Yeah,
I will.
for sure.
Yep. Good.
Well, I'll definitely stop this time when you walk by.
I saw you walk by me the last time. I saw that.
No, you didn't. No. All right. Thank you, gentlemen, so much.
Thanks again.
This episode of the Medical Fitness Podcast is brought to you by the Medicine, Rehab, and Fitness Institute. The MRFI has been co-founded by medical, rehab, and fitness practitioners who see the medical necessity in getting people to be more active and fit. There is a sleeping giant of opportunity to building a more active population, an opportunity which lies in a more effective medical referral pathway to exercise programs and professionals equipped to serve that pathway. To learn more about our services and how we're working to make this a reality, visit mrfinstitute.org. That's mrfinstitute.org.